2020 was a big year. We had a global pandemic, and then later the next generation of consoles were released. But it was an important year for the PlayStation 4. It would be the console's final year in the spotlight before the PlayStation 5 stole it that fall. The PlayStation 4 brought Sony back into the spotlight in the world of video games. Right from the moment Sony dared to show this at E3 2013,
Thanks.
They immediately launched themselves past the struggling Xbox One and into success. Not wanting to repeat the same issues they had with the PlayStation 3, Sony was focused on making the console developer friendly so they could create games with ease. From Nathan Drake's final outing, to God of War's reinvention, the debut of the Horizon series, and The Last Guardian finally getting released after so long, the PlayStation 4 had it all. And Sony's ongoing string of successful first-party hits would continue throughout 2020 for its swan song. From heavy hitters to lesser-known titles, Sony made sure that year was memorable for the players, its console, and they did not disappoint. We start off with Dreams. Media Molecule's successor to Little Big Planet was a long time coming. First shown off at PlayStation Meeting 2013, Dreams wouldn't get officially revealed until E3 2015. Now when it came to Little Big Planet, that series set the bar for its revolutionary play, create, share functionality on console. And Dreams continue this philosophy but has a greater emphasis on creative freedom. While yes, there is a limitation to how much you could do, if you can dream it, you can somehow make it, and the possibilities are endless. Whereas Little Big Planet allowed users to create 2.5D levels, Dreams took this further and allowed for full 3D creation. But Dreams isn't just about making and publishing levels. People have created sculptures, paintings, interactive scenes, music, recreations of scenes in popular games. Shared creations can be remixed by others and can even be collaborated on for the ultimate dream. And yes, like any creation tool, you will find a ton of bad and crappy levels that will blast your eardrums out. But there are plenty of excellent levels that really show the dedication and the passion these users have put into their creations. Dreams isn't necessarily a welcoming game to jump into if you want to create something, but if you're willing to put in the time and try out the tutorials, you can create something spectacular. But Dreams never made a huge impact like Little Big Planet. It never had that big, major promotional push by Sony as many of their other games had, and Dreams slipped under the radar. It never received a PlayStation 5 upgrade, and with that no PSVR 2 support, this would have been an excellent game for Sony to bring to PC like so many of their other games. The world of Dreams could have been opened up to so many more players, but it wasn't. Perhaps one of the issues with Dreams was the lack of a central icon. Little Big Planet had Sackboy, and Dreams really didn't have anything. Sure, there were the imps, but it often felt like they weren't the center of attention because they weren't what the game was about. And maybe the game released too late. If it had somehow released at the beginning or middle of the PlayStation 4's lifetime, maybe it would have been different. But I also think that the gaming landscape changed a ton throughout the PS4, that a well-detailed creation tool such as Dreams just didn't connect well as something like Minecraft. If that wasn't enough, later in 2023, Media Molecule will drop further updates and support for Dreams so they could focus on their next game. And this happened with a final big update when the game was finally released on PlayStation Plus for a bigger audience. You can still play, create, and share today, but don't expect anything new for the game. Dreams was never going to be the next big game out there, but a lot of its missteps didn't help. Another year, another baseball game. For this year's entry, MLB The Show 20 featured Chicago Cubs infielder Javier Baez on its cover. But more importantly, this would be the last MLB The Show game to appear exclusively on PlayStation consoles, as a deal between the MLB and Sony would force Sony to bring MLB The Show 21 to Xbox. It would also be the last game exclusive to the PlayStation 4, as the next game would also launch for the PlayStation 5. If you're familiar with developer IllFonic, you know asymmetrical multiplayer games are basically their thing. With games such as Friday the 13th, Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, and Killer Clowns from Outer Space the game, it was Predator Hunting Grounds that Sony would publish. Releasing on both the PlayStation 4 and PC, it's another game that slipped under the radar, but likely because of its mixed reviews, with many noting how messy of a game this was. Predator Hunting Grounds is a 4-on-1 asymmetrical shooter. 4 players of an elite fire team versus someone as the legendary Predator. The fire team is shown from a first-person perspective, and it's their job to complete paramilitary operations assigned to them. This ranges from tasks like collecting intel, killing NPC enemies, or sabotaging shipments, all while avoiding being hunted by the predator or capturing and killing it, with the predator being played from a third-person perspective. But probably one of the cooler bits of the game come with the DLC where 2 versions of Arnold Schwarzenegger's character Dutch is playable, and is even voiced by the actor. Other than that, you can probably find better asymmetrical multiplayer games to play out there. The Last of Us Part 2 may be the most controversial game in recent memory due to its story choices, structure, deceptive advertising, and second playable character. After years of what felt like endless teasers and clips that introduced us to unnamed characters who we would later get familiar with, the sequel to one of the greatest games of all time was finally released. It's probably fair to say that The Last of Us Part 2 is the biggest title to hit the PlayStation 4 that year, and it would win the coveted title of Game of the Year by the Game Awards. Whether you like or dislike The Last of Us Part 2, it's hard to disagree the amount of work Naughty Dog has put into it. This game is probably pushing the PlayStation 4 to its limits. If you bought the game physically, you know the game has 2 discs. Part 2 isn't the first game to be released like this, but after you play it, you understand why. Part 2 is often reminiscent to something like Heavy Rain or Resident Evil 6. Massive games with multiple storylines and plot points. In order to understand Ellie's story, you need to play Abby's, and to understand Abby's, you played Ellie's. They both stand alone, cross over at certain times, and clarify certain plot points in each other's. It helps to understand the motives and setting with the various factions at war with one another. In a story of revenge, how far are you willing to go to exact revenge? How far is too far, and at the end of it all, is it really worth it? Because the cycle of revenge just goes on and on. While the game does retain a linear playstyle, certain levels open up for greater exploration. And when it comes to combat, there are more ways to approach certain scenarios. Whether that be stealth or attacking head-on, clickers can be lured in to attack humans and do the job for you. Just the amount of detail Naughty Dog has been able to stuff in Part 2 is incredible. You have 2 massive campaigns in one game with their own characters, their own settings. It's a game that has built upon the legacy of not only its first game, but also gameplay elements featured in Uncharted 4, such as jumping and climbing ropes. From the facial animations to the behavior of the AI and the stunning and beautiful environments. Part 2 is full of jaw-dropping moments and is an emotional rollercoaster ride from start to finish. If you've ever wanted to be Iron Man, Marvel's Iron Man VR has you covered. One of the final first-party games for the PlayStation VR, take to the skies as Iron Man and go up against one of Iron Man's most lethal villains out there, Ghost. The game allows players to freely fly around as Iron Man. Each level has different goals involved, usually involving combat, but also sees Iron Man doing objectives such as putting out fires or deactivating explosives. Iron Man's armor and weapons can be upgraded and altered, which can affect how each scenario plays out. And if that isn't enough, apparently there are multiple references that show Iron Man VR is actually set in the same universe as Insomniac's Spider-Man games. It's pretty much a forgotten recent Marvel game, likely because it requires the PSVR, and if you own one, you know how much of a time-consuming process it is to hook up. In the years leading up to the release of Ghost of Tsushima, it never felt like there was much hype. And when Ghost of Tsushima finally released, a lot of people who doubted the game found themselves loving it. It was a surprise hit for the year. Its inspiration from Japanese samurai films is ever present in its action and structure, and there's an overall respect to the Japanese culture. It's a game that feels authentic despite it being fiction, and you can feel the passion and ambition Sucker Punch had in making this. And honestly, I don't think anyone was expecting Ghost of Tsushima to be their next game after the Infamous series. The game builds upon the groundwork laid by Sly Cooper and Infamous, especially in its stealth mechanics, parkour, and climbing, but evolved to fit within Ghost of Tsushima. As Jin progresses, his skills improve, new equipment is unlocked, and as the story requires it, the next few islands that make up Tsushima are unlocked. We get to watch Jin evolve into what becomes the Ghost, turning his back on the traditional samurai ways he grew up with as he takes matters into his own hands. While the open world does fall into typical tropes you'll find in any of these type of games, Ghost of Tsushima does do things in a different way, and Tsushima has one of the most beautiful environments you will find in any game. Oftentimes, you just want to spend a few minutes taking in the sights because they are stunningly gorgeous. While there is fast travel, Jin can use the wind as guidance to his destination. Smoke signals alert Jin to side quests. Really, the game allows for the beauty of the land to connect with Jin and guide him. When it comes to combat, it isn't just attacking head-on for that kill. Often you'll need to wear down an enemy by staggering or parrying their defenses before achieving that, especially when fighting groups of enemies. Stealth is also an option most times and is equally satisfying. Ghost of Tsushima takes some skill and strategy to execute, but is well worth it. Since its release, the game has had a couple of expansions, the first being the excellent Ghost of Tsushima Legends mode, an online cooperative multiplayer mode that features a new story, survival, and rivals mode. Unlike many online games today, Legends has this feeling of how some multiplayer games were on something like the PS3, and that's probably because it doesn't have microtransactions. You can unlock cosmetics and skills by playing and grinding, and this multiplayer mode never feels like it requires your full attention as too many other online games do. Then, when the game was re-released for the PlayStation 5 with a director's cut, a new story expansion called Iki Island was released. This adds a new explorable island, has a brand new story, new skills, and cosmetics. It's everything you enjoyed about Ghost of Tsushima, but more of it. Despite the launch of the PlayStation 5 later in the year, Sony was still committed to supporting the PlayStation 4 with first-party games until 2022. And with issues making enough PlayStation 5 consoles during a pandemic, it was probably a wise move. The PlayStation 5 launched with Sackboy Big Adventure and Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, both also appearing on the PlayStation 4. Both did have technical limitations being on the PlayStation 4. Certain details were either omitted from Sackboy or altered, and for Miles Morales, loading screens were present. Of course, both of these games are best to play on PlayStation 5, but it's nothing like the transition from the PlayStation 3 to the PlayStation 4. So many games suffered on the PS3 because they weren't made for it and were severely downgraded. When it comes to these PlayStation 4 versions, you really can't go wrong with them. Plus, you can easily transfer your saved data to the PlayStation 5 when you're ready to upgrade. The PlayStation 4 is an incredible console, and it was the push Sony needed to reclaim some kind of dominance in the market after struggling with the PlayStation 3. From its launch to its swan song, the PlayStation 4 is full of so many incredible games. And with hit titles like The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, the PlayStation 4 went out on an extreme high. Even with Sony focusing on the PlayStation 5, the PlayStation 4 continues to get plenty of support from third-party developers. Let me know in the comments below, what are your favorite memories and games on the PlayStation 4? Please be sure to like and subscribe for future content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.